Interstate rest area and truck stop employees. What's the most bizarre story you have? Not an employee, but a frequent cross-country traveler. Weirdest was pulling up to a truck stop to fill up in southeastern South Dakota during the height of the mayfly hatch, millions of bugs all over. I started filling up and was getting ready to clean my windshield, and I happened to look over across the way and there was some dude driving a big box truck in the diesel fueling area. He was scraping them off the front of his truck and eating them by the handfuls. Other days before cell phones were a thing. Edit to update. Thank you guys so much for the upvotes. It was honestly the single most memorable thing I've ever witnessed in my countless cross-country trips since the late 90s. I just stood there, mouth agape, not believing what I was seeing. And every time I remember it, I'm sad I didn't have a cell phone to record it, because it was just so crazy. I'm sure mayflies are nutritious, and I'm not knocking cultures that eat bugs, but mayflies smell like fish feces to me, and eating them straight off the front of your car is just extra special. I worked at a gas station / truck stop for over a year in high school. I have lots of stories. So, one time I'm closing up the station. I was starting to count the till before I turn on the security system and leave. I've got a wad of 20s when 4 cop cars come ripping into our lot. I run to the windows, 2 cops go to the back, and the other 2 position at the corners, where it's hard to see them through the windows. Now, I'm an idiot high schooler, so I'm trying to look out the window grasping $300 in 20s, when I realize they've got weapons drawn, and are trying to look at me. I put my hands up, cash in hand, and start yelling that I'm an employee. They let me unlock the door and come in. They were nice, but clearly frustrated that I set off the alarm. I tell them 4 to 5 times that the alarm was not set, but they insist that I'm wrong and that they had a clear security report. So I took them to the panel, verified it was off. Then my smarts kick in. Hey guys, what address was the alarm for? 303 Baker. Why? That's not our address. That's ABC Supplier Block North. They moved quickly to that business. I heard later that the safe was taken from that supply store. Years ago when I was a kid we were traveling with my mum, her best friend and my sisters. We were pretty tired and pulled into a truck stop for some food and bathroom break. We walk in, my mum asks a guy where the bathrooms were. He points us in the right direction and off we toddle. We come out, take a seat, and wait for the waitress to come take our order. She seems to be taking a while, but we figure she's probably busy and will come when she can. Eventually she comes over and tells my mum that everything is okay and the police are on their way. My mum, pretty confused, asks her what she means. Well, turns out we had walked into the middle of an armed robbery and my mum had actually asked the robber where the toilets were. Worked in a sandwich restaurant in a truck stop. One day several years ago on one of my days off, one of our maintenance workers, we'll call him Michael, was doing his rounds changing trash cans in the truck parking lot. Michael supposedly happened across a 2 or 3 foot length of PVC with caps on either end. For most people, alarm bells should be going off. Not for Michael. He started lightly beating things with it and tossing it on the ground, like one would with a small branch or something. Guy takes it into the truck stop and throws it away in the garbage can under the cash register and forgets about it. Several hours later at shift change, he's giving an informal report to the incoming shift manager and casually mentions that he found something like a pipe bomb or something in the lot and that he threw it away under the register. Shift manager goes white as a ghost and says, "There's a pipe bomb under the register?" Michael says yeah. The shift manager immediately vacates the premises, herds all the employees and customers out, and phones the authorities. The volunteer fire department, which I happen to be a member of, got toned out to block traffic into the parking lot and keep people at a distance. Sheriff's department shows up, realizes this is above their pay grade, calls the state police. They quickly realize the same and call in the bomb squad from the nearest major city and the ATF. All these important people are slowly gathering in the parking lot a healthy distance away from the building while I keep having to run back and forth across the parking lot in the 95-degree heat in turnout gear to explain to pissed off truck drivers that no, they cannot go in the truck stop while there's a bomb inside. And no, I did not make that rule. The news ends up showing up. The ATF shows up. They suit up in bomb suits, walk in, carry the pipe bomb out, set it on the ground at the corner of the concrete walls of the building, run some detonation cord back to their truck, and set it off. The explosion was the size of a somewhat large firecracker. Michael got fired. Edit. It probably wasn't an actual bomb of any kind. Could have been a pipe full of welding rods. A fake det cord will blow up anyway, so it could just been the det cord explosion and nothing else. Overnight shift supervisor 15 years ago. On Valentine's Day, then 18 years old, I was the only lonely MOTHERF*CKING shift supervisor to be able to work second shift at McD's rest area because, again, lonely with no date. I'm half asleep working the shift. Guy comes in, hires a kite. Actually, he's higher than kites can go. He orders his food and leaves. An hour later, my cleaning guy, we'll call him Pedro, tells me there's a guy on the toilet that won't come out. We go in, keep knocking, and we are thinking he's sleeping on the shitter. We can see his pants around his ankles, and he's leaning down. While I go call the cops, I tell my cleaning guy to block the bathroom so no one goes into that part of it. There's 2 sides to the bathroom. Pedro comes out and tells me the guy is purple and dead on the shitter. He overdosed on something, not sure what. The kicker is that Pedro decided it was in his best interest to run the guy's pockets before the cops show up, which is how he found out the guy was dead. Pedro took the guy's stash and money before leaving. I found out a week later as I overheard it through the crew talking. Fun times at that place. Felt bad for the guy. I wouldn't want to go out that way. I managed a truck stop an hour east of Winnipeg in the late 90s. This was around the time that Western Star came out with their one-way full window bunk. We had a regular base of clientele that would stop both ways. Surprise to no one. One of the regulars became enamored with one of the waitresses. She had complained to me about this driver 2 weeks before, and I assured her I would deal with it if he continued to make her uncomfortable. On his return trip he stopped in. I watched, saw nothing, and toward. He ate and then left for his truck. As the Western Star full window bunk has been mentioned, he was parked right in front of the restaurant's bay window. I'm back in the kitchen helping with prep, and I hear my name called, and then I hear my name called. I walk out, look out the window, and see the sun hitting the bunk window of this truck at just the right angle to witness this dude yanking on his wiener so fucking hard that I thought he was going to rip it off. All the while he's staring straight at the waitress through the window of the restaurant. Before I could react, he realized that we could see him, jumped in the saddle, pants around his ankles, and hightailed it onto the highway. I think he must have grabbed 5 gears inside 20 feet getting it going. We never saw him again. I didn't work there, but I was at a truck stop in West Virginia where a very fat trucker was trying to buy a Twix bar from the vending machine. He paid for it, but the bar got stuck on the last loop of the dispenser. So the trucker starts shaking the machine. Don't try this ever, and it comes toppling down onto his legs, pinning him to the floor. "Ah fuck," he says nonchalantly. Everyone hears the crash and comes rushing over to help, while a worker calls 911. It's at this point the trucker realizes that the glass on the machine has broken, so he reaches between his legs under the machine, feels around, and grabs a Twix bar from the machine. This dude just lies there completely unconcerned about being pinned to the floor and starts eating the candy. A worker says he should try to stay still until help arrives, but the trucker responds with "fuck off, I paid for it already." By the time the fire department arrived and pried the vending machine off of him, this fucker had eaten all the Twix bars in the machine as well as some Doritos and cookies. An EMT brought out a stretcher to take this guy to the ambulance, but the trucker says he has a deadline to meet and that the ambulance won't be necessary. He gets up, somehow relatively unscathed, hands the worker $20, and says thanks for dinner bro, then hops in his truck and leaves. Not one anymore, but when I was a maintenance worker for a truck stop, I got a call over the radio saying there were 2 women in the parking lot covered in chocolate. I thought, well, as long as they don't come into the store. I went outside to find 2 women, completely naked, covered in a brown substance. I hope to God it was chocolate. The sheriff was called and apparently, they were both completely sober. They were there for a sorority thing. They were issued a ticket and it was, indeed, chocolate. Another one was a woman came to the counter and said someone stole her car. We called the sheriff, and while we waited, I found she parked her car in the parking lot way in the back, while she went to a nearby city with some girlfriends. When the sheriffs arrived, they couldn't find a trace of her car, broken window, skid marks, etc. And assumed someone must have had a key or the door was open/picked. He did some investigating around the spot and found her car in the ravine she was parked next to. Apparently, a truck backed up, didn't know it hit something, and pushed it off the embankment. Took 2 wreckers to pull it out. The person who pushed it off was never found. I have a ton of crazy stories from that job, and I only worked there a year. Those are just the 2 that stood out to me. I worked overnights at a truck stop and nights at a truck shop for a combined 10 years. When your stint was as long as that, bizarre means less and less. I've been propositioned by lot lizards, both attractive and not. Propositioned by truckers, male and female. Lost count of the piss jugs I've had to throw out. Seen the boss jet in busy with the help. Seen drug deals and drug busts, petty thefts, and a truck crash into a diesel pump which left me smelling like fuel for a week. I also gained a short-lived stalker who settled for a guy with the same name, similar dress style, identical hair and beard style, with near identical likes, because if she couldn't have me, she'd settle for the next best thing. But what sticks out most are the following 2 instances. The first was when my town got from 7 to 11 inches of rainfall in a day. Our shop sat on the corner of an intersection, and myself and the technicians watched as idiot after idiot tried to get across the clearly flooded street, even with other cars flooded out and serving as warning signs. Also outside our shop were massive drainage ditches, and as the flooding got so bad that the ditches were full, the water started pulling cars into the ditches. An older woman got sucked into one of the eddies, and one brave mechanic raced out to save her. He dove into the churning water, pulled her out of her car, and got her to safety. When he came back, he had an utterly defeated look on his face. We asked him what happened, and he said, "She yelled at me for not saving her groceries." The other was, while I was employed at the truck stop, a friend and I were smoking outside and chatting with a non-stereotypical trucker. We'd been shooting the breeze for 10 minutes or so, when he asked, "Y'all got any strip clubs around here?" I said yes, and started giving instructions on how to get to the first, when he interrupted me. "I'm not looking for any good looking women. I want them fat or messed up looking. I like them ugly." I looked at my friend and we laughed, clearly thinking it was a joke. It was not. The trucker got a little red and angry. "I'm serious. I want them missing teeth, or a limb, or something." My buddy and I laughed harder, and the driver walked away, cussing us all the way to his truck. I didn't mean to kink shame the guy, but damned if it wasn't funny.